feel like I've been having this conversation with you, Grover, for like 15 years. We talk about the debt ceiling every few years. In 2011, Republicans had insisted that spending cuts should be matched to whatever we exceeded or lifted the debt limit cap by. Yeah. Back then, the national debt was $14.3 trillion. Now we have $22 trillion. Why do we even have a debt ceiling?
Well, what the debt ceiling does is means at least every couple of years you have to sit down and really come to grips on a bipartisan basis about what you want to do. When you have divided government, the only way that Nancy Pelosi can be part of any conversation is on the debt ceiling or on questions of the final budget. Otherwise, the government just continues to move along. So the out-of-power party, as it was the Republicans in 2011, was able to extract very serious spending restraint. Remember, spending went from 25% of the economy down to 20% of the economy because they slammed on the brakes of Obama's planned spending, took quite a bit of money away from what Obama had planned to spend. Obama didn't want to give that up. And we got the sequester, which is the spending limits.
And now the hang-up seems to be this VA mission, whether it's counted as military spending or non-military spending in terms of parity. Where do you fall down on this, and what should happen?
Well, what we have right now is the sequester. So there's a limit on spending. The Democrats would like to eliminate it or tremendously increase that limit. The limit right now says that if you hit the limit on spending, you take half of the savings out of the military spending and half out of domestic spending. And the Democrats would like to take more money out of the military and less money out of domestic. What they've been demanding so far is a $100 billion increase over 2 years in domestic spending, regardless of what else happens. They want that much, I'm sorry, $100 billion more in spending. The Republicans would like to not see spending go up as a result of a budget deal. And both sides want to avoid being the one who's blamed for a default or a government shutdown.
Well, how do we get out of it?
Well, the Republicans and the House, the presidency are saying we don't want to shut the government down and we think we'll get a deal. Nancy Pelosi is saying we don't want to shut down or a default and we think we'll get to a deal. And both of them are continuing to argue to get the best deal they can. At the very end, they'll come to an agreement.
Well, and the question is, will that happen before August recess, or will we suffer a government shutdown again? You heard the Fed chairman testifying on Capitol Hill that this is one of the big policy issues that looms as a cloud over the economic outlook for our nation. Is this something that, in your mind, Washington takes serious enough? Are Republicans taking this seriously enough?
Well, both parties are trying to use this to their advantage, to get something they could not get from the other party without this deadline. At the end of the day, everybody knows that a deal will be made. So this isn't some mega deal because there will be an agreement. Everybody knows it. We go through this each year. The world is going to end if we don't come to an agreement. We come to an agreement and somebody decides to give more than they wanted to, or they both give more than they wanted to. This is not as important as ending the trade war with China or simply getting control of the budget. First one we might get, probably second one, no. I know the Republicans would very much like to maintain the sequester at some level, so there's some spending restraint going ahead the next 2 to 3 years, and the Democrats would prefer not to. Tax increases are off the table, which is a tremendous win for the Republicans. Now it's a question of the Democrats want more social spending, less military spending, and a reduction in the power of the sequester limitations.
Hey, Grover, you mentioned the trade war with China. You've repeatedly said on Twitter that tariffs are taxes. We're not really seeing it feed into inflation so far. Is your thinking evolved at all on tariffs?
Well, I mean, tariffs are taxes. We've seen actually steel prices fall for other reasons. But that's that uncertainty of whether the trade war continues forever and indefinitely. I mean, trade wars are wars of choice, but you don't get to decide when they're over. China gets a vote, too, on whether the trade war is over. I think it is in both countries' interest to come to an agreement. If they'd stop stealing some of our intellectual property, we could get rid of the tariffs. If that happens, I think you'd see the stock market and the economy extremely happy because they'd have more certainty. It's the uncertainty of whether things bobble along, get worse, but settling things forward with Europeans as well. Certainly the Mexico-Canada deal is ready to go. We just need the Congress to act. Settling the trade conflicts with some progress on intellectual property would be a tremendous win for the United States. And China's having its own challenges. There are reasons why it would want to bring this to an end as well.